Hello, BookTube, and welcome to Friday Reads. This is Friday Reads for February 4th. And so I'm going to go through what I've read this week and what I will be reading next week. Sorry, I was just looking for a book here. Yep, there it is. Well, we've continued with the Future History Project and read 6 Susan Calvin stories from The Complete Robot. And this is the longest read we've had yet. It's 100 and some pages because there were some longer stories there. So, let me get that out of the way. And I also read for Book to Film is Journey to the Center of the Earth. This is the Penguin edition. Introduction by Jane Smiley and translated by Peter Cogman. And this was put out, originally it was 1864, but the Penguin edition in translation is 2009 in the introduction. And I'll be doing that book to film for tomorrow. I may be a bit late with getting it up because I have been busy reading something else, and I normally would watch Wednesday or Thursday the film and then go through the extras and so forth, but I haven't even had a chance to watch it, or rewatch it yet, I should say. So I'll get to that, but as I say, it might be up tomorrow evening. And I also read the first Philo Vance novel, The Benson Murder Case, and written by S.S. Van Dyne, who was, I can't remember the guy's name, it's pseudonym of an art critic, Willard Huntington Wright, who lived from 1888 to 1939. And I've read some of the books before, but I've decided I want to read through all of the Philo Vance. And what I'm going to do is there's a number, they made a lot of films, or several films, with William Powell as Philo Vance. And this was a 1930 film. So I'm going to actually do this next week, next week's book to film, because I don't have it on DVD or Blu-ray, but you can stream it on YouTube. So, and as long as I can remember the story well enough for this, but I'll be doing some others as well, the Kennel Murder Case, as well as The Cat and the Canary. That's with Louise Brooks. It was originally supposed to be a silent, but then they put sound in it. But we'll talk about that at the time. So there'll be a few of these that I'll do. They won't be sort of heavy hitters in any way, but the fun books and fun films. And William Powell, you can't go wrong with William Powell anyway. So, and this was originally published in 1926, and this is Felony and Mayhem edition 2018, who have put out all of them. I think just they were putting them out slowly, and I think the 11th or 12th was put out just a year or two ago. So I've got a number of them. I will have to get the rest as I progress along with the series. Also, too, that I started, not quite finished. I've got about 245 pages to go of Rabelais, Francois Rabelais' Gargantua and Pantagruel, that was written in the 1530s to 1550s. It's an odd book. It's comic in some ways. It's funny, but the kind of humor is basically puerile humor. There's scatological humor, a lot of fart jokes, and that type of thing, but also cruel humor. And this is a translation I'd not read. This is a newer Penguin translation by M.A. Screech, and he translated and with the notes. And this was done. See if I can find a date for this. 2006. the previous Penguin edition. What's the guy's name? Someone Cohen. That I read 2, possibly 3 times. I'm not sure if I actually completed it the third time. I might have got disturbed, but anyway, I've definitely read it 2 times, possibly 3, and then this is the fourth read. It's one of my favorite books. Screech is exceptionally good here for a number of reasons. His introduction is really good, but also too, it's almost as if it's annotated. Each chapter, he's got a description of things that are in the that current chapter. Now, you need this for this book, unless you are, steeped in Greco-Roman literature, early church history, the Bible, Erasmus especially, law, Roman law, and Renaissance law, and Renaissance medicine. Rabelais was a doctor, and he takes stories either from Erasmus, where Erasmus is Adasia, I think it is. It's sort of like Proverbs, a huge thing where he's taken sayings, aphorisms, or whatever you want to call them, and with explanations. And he takes some of these, he turns them on their head sometimes, and makes fun of them. And he does other things with religious, especially like he was branded a heretic, mainly for what he later said was, oh, it was a printing error, it wasn't me. In French, the word for soul and the word for ass are very similar. Just there's an M and then there's an N in the other word. So he says, oh, it was the printer that did this, but he compares a soul to an ass. Um, so, anyway, he goes through all the permeations, because there were a number of printings of the book, first edition, second edition, and the so-called sort of authorized edition, and there were changes that Rabelais had made, and this is sort of very complete because he puts in the additional information for the authoritative edition in brackets, so you know where it is, and then footnotes to do with the variant readings of this. But it also is really highlighting the problem of translation, because where words in French sort of work together, and they're what's the word for it? They sort of have the same sounding, and doing things like that. English, it doesn't really work that way, so it's difficult to get the sense of what Rabelais was doing, or as I say, the soul with the word for ass. Like they're very similar and they sound the same. They're almost rhymes. So it's very difficult to do, as well as where he may use words from another language, whether ancient Greece or Latin, German, Spanish, whatever. But that word may sound like something else in French, and it makes it funny. We have a lot of things like that too, that words in another language sound like something else in English, and they're humor, usually naughty things. And that's what he pulls up. But also too, he has great lists of things, and like he'll go for paragraph after paragraph, listing sort of something, somebody's shoes or something like that, for instance. And it's quite hypnotic when you read them, and if you read them quickly, it's quite interesting. And I'm just trying to find, there is a section of the character going to a library, and 99% of the books are fake, but the titles make me want to read many of the titles. Okay, like here he's got like 4 pages of games, and he lists them all. I'm trying to find the listing of the books because there's several that are just hilarious, and I would love to read if they were written at that time under that subject matter. And of course, I'm not finding it at all. Oh, here it is. Uh, Tartarus on how to defecate. Scrubbing Dawn's clean. Give you one more here if I can find it. Let's see here. And of course, I'm not finding the one. There's something about farts. a treatise on farts. Which just sound like, if it was done at this time, it would they'd be hilarious to read. And the story it's the sort of the tales and the great deeds of two giants, Gargantua and his son Pantagruel. And it's kind of weird because they at times, like, the Pantagruel will have, like, he's got cities of people living in his mouth, but then all of a sudden he's on a ship with other people, and he's high above the clouds, but then he's talking and he's going to school, and it's just it's absurd, but it is wonderful. So I have about 240 some pages to go, and I'll be finishing that over the weekend. It is just marvelous. I'm reading that with Scott Bryant. He's reading it much slower, but because he's got a lot of other stuff. And I've just decided that's why I'm behind, because I just got so involved with it. That's all I've mostly what I've read for the last 3 days, especially. And then also too, I'm one of the co-hosts of FFS, February Fantasy Stories, and we're doing classic. The first week is classic fantasy stories, and I have read a little bit from this, which that'll be what I'll be doing tomorrow, because I'll be putting breaks on Rabelais and get a bunch of stories read here. I'll see where I can get to. I have no sort of exact number that I'm going to read, and then I will talk about them on Sunday. And that's sort of it, I think, that I've read this week. Next week we're going to continue. There's one last story in the Complete Robot, Susan Calvin, and then there's one in Robot. Oh, I don't have that here. Robot Dreams, which is the final Isaac Asimov story that he wrote about Susan Calvin, and then there are 4 in Foundation's Friends. This is just a beat up, ratty reading copy that I have, and I'll be reading those. Plus, not all these have to do with the future history, even though it's Foundation's Friends. I'm gonna eventually read through the whole book as we dip into the stories. And for the book to film, as I say, I'll be doing the Philo Vance next week, so I won't be reading another one this time. But I will be reading book 3 of the Bulldog Drummond series. And this is the 3rd round. And this was published in 2008 by, this is the reprint by House of Stratos. They're nice editions, more or less, but for the fact that they're now print on demand, and if you get them from Amazon, they're poorly done. Look at the covers. I don't know. They use a crappy place to print, but they are nice. And they've published basically, or they've reprinted all of Sapper H.C. McNeil's Bulldog stories and his other ones as well. I think they might have published a few of the novels that were written by a friend of his under the same name. They might be part of the series as well. But I do enjoy these. These were made, or a lot of them were made into films as well. I'm not going to deal with them, I don't think. I might at some point, but at the moment I won't. And then next week's fantasy, the FFS, is Sword and Sorcery. So I have this volume 1 of it's the complete Conan by Robert E. Howard, and this is the original short stories. I have read probably a few of these original stories, but the ones that I've read were the novels that were made into novels by L. Sprague de Camp. I think, was it Lynn Carter as well that had a finger in that as well? I'm not sure. But I have read a few, so this will be a pleasure to sort of dip into these again. I'll be reading as much as I can. I won't be. I have no sort of preconceived or pre. I don't have an idea of exactly how many I'm going to read. I'll read what I can and then talk about it on the following Sunday. And I might put another book in or two, fiction-wise, but I'm not sure yet. I'm going to be catching up on some of the Asimov reading that I should have done this week, which I didn't because I was reading Gargantuan Pantagruel. But also, too, I do want to read this. It's Rabelais and His World by Mikhail Bakhtin, translated by Helene Iswolski. And this is published by Indiana University Press. Oh, I paid a whopping £1.99 for this somewhere. This was published originally 1968, and this is 1984 reprint, or translation anyway. No, I guess it's a reprint, yeah, by Indiana University Press. So it's not that big. Well, it's 450 pages, so I should be able to get this done next week. If I don't, that's fine, because this is an all-month project, and I also have another one that I can dip in if I do maybe jump back and forth. Is Rabelais by Michael J. Heath, Medieval and Renaissance Texts and Studies from Tempe, Arizona, 1996. It's without a jacket. It's very, very short. It's not even 200 pages. It's like 120 pages, basically. So that'll be a quick read. But yeah, and I'd forgotten I had those because there was a subscriber mentioned that they got, Screech had written a book about Rabelais, and I've always wanted that. And I thought, I didn't even think of that. And then I realized I was sitting here and I go, I've got something. And then I knew it was somewhere in behind me here. So it was down below a little bit behind my chair in the bookcase here. So I grabbed those out, and I'm definitely going to read those because they were there for when I next read Gargantuan Pantagruel. So yeah, so that's my reading for this past week, and what I hope to read for next week. As I say, there'll be a few other things, like I didn't get back to James Gunn's Isaac Asimov's Foundations of Science Fiction, and I have a whole stack of these that are about Isaac Asimov that I'll be reading bits and pieces of as we get to those type of stories. I'm going to start going through with the robot material of the books, and then I'll be posting. I'll be putting up videos as much as possible where there's sort of some interesting stuff to be said from this. But yeah, so that's where I'm at this week, and that's where I'm going next week, and I will see you next time, BookTube.